Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And the Warcraft Direct just concluded, and we've had a bunch of announcements that were made. A lot of it we already knew a lot of stuff about, but a lot of it we didn't, and there's a lot of mysteries as well to solve that I've got pulled up here on the roadmap, and I wanted to go over just some of the stuff that's got me really excited for the future with World of Warcraft. And as always, if you want to stay up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then make sure to smash the subscribe button. Thank you very much for your support. So I think the big new announcement obviously for retail WoW was 11.1. We got to see the new zone. So we're going to the Undermine, which is a goblin focused area. There's going to be a new raid, a new dungeon, and a new PvP arena. And this PvP arena looks like it's going to be very similar to Ring of Valor, with where you're going to be spawning in with some slight ramps and tweaks. I'm curious to see if there's any sort of like moving parts to this map specifically. It seems to be a really good map for demon hunters with double jump, or Drakthir with jump as well. I'm not sure if they wanted to have some bias towards that to try and incentivize people to be going over to Drakthir or not. But those were like the three main things. There are obviously new delves as well. And there is going to be a new style of movement. So they're bringing in cars, and these cars apparently are going to explode. You're going to be able to customize them. You're going to be able to build them for grip or build them for speed. And most importantly for me is that I hope that they engage in world PvP. I'm hoping that with these cars, they'll have like a speed up button like the dragons do, like whirling surge to dismount players. I'm hoping it's got one of those so you can like ram into other players' cars, dismount them, and kind of engage with world PvP. I think that's the type of chaos you would expect in a goblin focused zone, especially with the fact that explosions and stuff like that. So I really hope that with all the customizations we're going to be able to have on these cars, that they're also going to have some elements that allow us to engage with other players with war mode. But I thought that was a really cool feature that they included with the new zone. It looks just overall like a really solid zone. There is some stuff in 11.1.5 that nobody really talked about, and I think really stood out. Probably a lot of negative perceptions, at least, to the wording for it. Horrific Visions Revisited. Now, if you don't remember Horrific Visions, they were in Battle for Azeroth. Now, the actual content itself was pretty cool. Race against the clock to kill all the bosses and get some epic loot at the end of it. A solo player Mythic Plus almost type of gameplay. The problem really with it was the reward structure, the RNG nature of corruption, the fact that the vendor rotated weekly and you didn't know if the item you were going to want to get was going to be up there for any amount of time in order to get the currencies. I think it was the reward system behind Horrific Visions that actually left a lot of salt for a lot of players at that period of time, and not so much the content itself. If they had put this as Mage Tower Revisited, everyone would be really excited, and it's basically the same thing. The Mage Tower was a challenge for your character to complete within a certain period of time, but it didn't have all those RNG elements around it. So my hope is that Horrific Visions, again, won't be mandatory for PvP players, and they can just focus in on the content itself, and it's basically going to, my expectation would be is like a heroic delve or a timed version of a delve for players who want a little bit more of a challenge and not so much the chill gameplay. So potentially it's got a lot of potential, I think, sitting in it, but obviously Horrific Visions, when you read the word, it's probably going to drive a little bit of like negative connotations to it. So maybe they should have called it Mage Tower Revisited or something instead. Now they say new content and system update, and they also say season rewards refresh. So I don't know if that just means that like, hey, this is the new season, or if this means that they're going to be changing the systems of rewards. Like, are we getting a new rating system? Are we getting a new Mythic Plus rating system? Like the language on this, like it would be kind of like empty to just say, yeah, the rewards refresh. Like, why would you even include the language here on the banner? You may as well just not even leave it in, right? Unless it's going to be something core is changing in 11.2. So I'm really hoping they do. I think the number one system that they need to update is the PvP rating system. We need a complete refresh on those systems and how the rewards work for it, because the expectations for the current system are just completely blown out of the water from Dragonflight Season 1, and it's the number one complaint thing. It's leading to player loss and lack of player retention. So I'm hoping that that's what this means, and that's what they're going to look at specifically, but it's tough to say whether or not that will actually be the case. And then if we look at the date, we're going to have the expansion reveal at the end of the summer in 2025, which means the War Within is a very, very, very tiny expansion. Very tiny expansion, like 11.1 coming out at the end of winter. So like what, February, maybe somewhere in there. Spring moves through for April, and then we're already at the end of summer. We're talking about the next expansion, and they talked about player housing. Now, I've always wondered, like, how are they going to go about this? Because I think if they do individual player housing like garrisons, or you're just completely isolated, it's not going to work. I think that they need to do it in a very similar style to Final Fantasy, where you have neighborhoods. You got your house next to other players' houses. You can go visit your other friends' houses and something like that. Because if it's just completely isolated, yeah, it might be cool for a little bit, but I think it's gonna end up being like garrisons, where you're just like sitting in there by yourself and it's kind of hollow. I do wonder, like, there's a lot of questions there that need to be answered, and they really just kind of leaked that they're gonna do it. And I think for them to be able to do it means that they're sacrificing a raid tier. Which means that we're probably not getting the faded season like they've done in previous ones, which is probably fine, because in Dragonflight they ended up just recycling elite sets anyways. It was a lot of just reused assets. Although it can be cool with the different effects and some of the older raids, I think majority of players would rather have a completely new system implemented than kind of do the faded season. So I think that this was likely a wise decision on their part, assuming that is their plan, unless they have so many staff that they can actually do both at the same time, and maybe they can potentially. But how would you like player housing done? Because for me, I think it's got to be neighborhoods. You got to be able to invite players over. You know, maybe they do some sort of mixture. Maybe they do a guild hall and your own personal house. You can do it either or in that sense. And my hope is that they don't limit you on your customization. I really hope that you can bring in whatever types of decorations you want. Even if you're Horde, you can use whatever you want, and they don't just force you to, like, you have to live in Orgrimmar. You know, you just be able to pick different styles of locations and neighborhoods and stuff like that. I'm really hoping it's got a lot more customization to it. And then they've left this, which is this little flag post. And if you see it over here, it's Plunderstorm, right? This is what this one is. We haven't seen this one. Now, they did Mop Remix, and this doesn't look like Mop Remix either. It's a completely new one. It's a triangle with a little swirly. And that's coming in at the beginning of winter after the expansion reveal, which then, is it coming at 11.3, or are we going to get 11.3 in the new year? Is the expansion continuing further? We don't know. This is kind of the filler content moving us towards the end of 11.2 into 11.3, which maybe we do get the faded season. Who knows, depending on the schedule. But we do know what they want to get an expansion out in and around like every 2 years. But this is the mystery, I think, that a lot of people are trying to solve. This is the teaser. Like, what is that? Because no one expected Plunderstorm. Plunderstorm was really out of left field as far as new content. So this could be just as wild in that sense when it comes to retail specifically. Now, Classic also got a lot of announcements, and we've got to see their roadmap as well. And I'm really happy that they're doing Mists of Pandaria Classic, because for me as a competitive PvP player, I really feel like that's where I started to rise up a lot, was in Mists of Pandaria. I participated in a lot of the soda pop and 5 versus 5, 1 versus 1 events, and I qualified to my first AWC LAN. Although it was a mishap, I built my team entirely from trade chat at the last possible second. We competed in the tournament. We beat some teams, and then we ended up losing before qualifying, but because some teams ended up cheating and got disqualified, we ended up qualifying because of the disqualifications. I got to go to New York and meet a lot of the biggest names in WoW PvP at that kind of first LAN event. That was my first exposure to it, and I went 0-6 at the event, but it was really fun. We put on at least one good game, and I mean, considering I made my team with trade chat at the last second, I felt like it was a really good time. So I'm really excited, because Mists of Pandaria's got some really good class design in it. I think especially if you're something like a Windwalker monk. This, to me, is the golden era if you're a Windwalker monk, at least when it comes to PvP. The ability to split yourself off into different images and just start punching multiple targets and put mortal wounds on multiple targets. That type of gameplay is great. But at the same time, it's also when the classes are the most bloated. This has got probably the most keybinds you will ever experience. So you got to be going into it expecting that. But I'm really happy that they decided to do it, because I didn't know if they worked, depending on Cataclysm's success or not. But they are doing it. And they're also doing a giant 3-tier release for vanilla. They're doing Classic Era, which is going to have Era progressing into Burning Crusade. And they're going to have Hardcore running in tandem, and PvP Realms running in tandem with this, along with Season of Discovery with new content, new raids. They talked about the Scarlet Crusade, and they talked about basically the underbelly of Karazhan being new content for that specifically, and that's coming out next week. And I know there's a lot of people that are just jumping on that right away. So if you're worried about running out of World of Warcraft content, you absolutely don't need to be worried. There's more than enough coming through here. Probably too much, honestly. I don't know about this being splintered so many different ways, and the fact that it's progressing, and we're doing Burning Crusade again so soon, to me just seems absolutely wild. And we've got the finals coming up for the Arena World Championship. We got the finals coming up for the Mythic Dungeon International as well. So there's tons of, this is like the culmination of everything is coming in at the same time. So make sure you check out those tournaments. They're going to be happening this weekend and next weekend as well. But that was pretty much it for what I was most excited about when it came to the Warcraft Direct announcement. Just wanted to share those little tidbits with you. What's getting you excited? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, thank you very much for tuning into the video, and I will see you in the next one.